Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Big Boss Show. It's a new show where we come to you every week with somebody that may have not always been a big boss, but shares his or her perspective that we can learn from. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Ben Winter. He's an author, speaker, actor, improvist, entrepreneur, traveler, father, and much, much more. Ben, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No doubt. So, um, I see that you have a book. What's the name of your book?
It's called What's What to Expect When Having Expectations.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that. How'd you come up with the book? How'd you get there?
It's actually a roundabout way. I've been teaching improv for a really long time, and one of the rules that I teach in improv is called be specific, which is really about setting expectations. And I kept telling everyone in class that the only reason anyone gets upset is because an expectation hasn't been met. And I was like, cool, this is a saying that I have that I made up on my own. Because all the speakers have their quotation quotes all out there. So I was like, this is cool, but it doesn't solve any problems. It's just pointing out an issue with no solution. And so I sat down one day and came up with a flow chart where I put like you're upset at the top, and then I asked some questions and really formed it around expectations. And then as I kept finding like the answers, like no, like have you shared your expectation? No, I haven't shared my expectation. There was a lot of depth in there, and so I was like, all right, I guess I need to write a book to really dive deeper into this whole subject. And it's just been a eye-opening and crazy experience.
Okay. Was there ever a situation where you had an expectation and then
Pick a day.
yeah.
Yeah, there's been plenty of times where I've had expectations that have gone unmet. I'd say a lot of times it was around relationships and in business. I mean, business is huge. It's like, we start our own businesses and we all want to, I want to be a millionaire on day two, right? I open the doors, everybody should be doing business with me, but that's not how it works. And so we have to kind of grow and learn and expand and figure things out as we're going. So it's
And
lots of expectations around starting a business.
yeah, cool. So how long have you been writing?
Let's see, I started my first book, I think, in about 2015 when I first came up with the idea of teaching improv for businesses. So basically, I use improv to teach team building and communication skills and conflict resolution. And I decided that people like to hire authors. So I thought I'd become an author. And I wrote my first book back then. And it was probably the easiest book that I wrote because I already knew the material. I knew kind of how I was going to teach this stuff. And it was super clear. So I went with that and just sort of kept writing after that and moving forward. And now I'm actually in the middle of writing my first sci-fi novel. So who knows where I'll end up.
Wow. And where do you get your inspiration from?
When it
So
comes to the self-help books, it's a lot of that comes from what I see when I'm teaching and where the need is, or what's happening in society. Like right now, there's a big issue with perception in that everybody has their perception of how the world works, but they're not willing to look at other people's perceptions. And it really kind of feeds into this weird dynamic of nobody wanting to be wrong. And so we're just out there fighting each other like you're wrong, no you're wrong, no you're wrong, no you're wrong. Well, here's the facts on why you're wrong. Well, these are the facts on why you're wrong. And it's like, come on, people, you're not even on the same battlefield. Let's actually sit down and talk and communicate with one another. So there's another book in the works that I'm working on that's about perspective and who's right and who's wrong, and why everybody's right and why everybody's wrong, and so on and so forth. It's a tricky one to tackle because again, nobody wants to be wrong.
that's so cool. And you started going to businesses and consulting them?
Yeah, so I get called into businesses that have a group of people, a department maybe, or the entire company, just depends on the size, and they say, yeah, we want to do some team building. And I come in and I do a 2 or 3 hour workshop depending on the need, and teach them basically how to use improv on a day-to-day basis and within the team so that everybody communicates more effectively, so that they can have more fun in the workplace. If everybody's having more fun, they're more productive. And if they're having more fun, they're more likely to stay. And if they feel valued, they're more likely to stay. And since employee turnover is such a huge issue, like whatever can actually help there is a good thing. So that's one of the things that I teach.
Okay, so I know you kind of mentioned it already, but what are the benefits of like improv in business?
So if you think about it, the only thing we do every day is improvise. You know, we don't wake up with a script. We don't know who we're going to meet in a day. We don't know how the day is going to go. And so we're just kind of moving through it. And as things happen, we respond or react to those stimuli. Now, for those that have seen stage improv or have seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway, the actors on stage, when they're working together, they're following a simple set of rules. And when you're watching and you're like, that's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. How did they figure that out without a script? Or, you know, you see some of your favorite scenes in movies that happen to be improvised because the actors went off script. The other actors realized what was happening and they followed the same rules of improv. And so by teaching those rules of improv, you actually understand how life works a little bit easier and more in your corner, because you're not fighting how the world works. You're actually using it to your advantage. So in business with a team of people, it's kind of the same thing. And you're like, oh, I'm not going to make this person wrong because they said something. I'm going to now understand what they're saying, come from a different place, have a discussion, maybe negotiate what they want with what I want. And so we're now meeting in the middle. You know, another way to look at it is if you sit in a room and you're brainstorming an idea or a solution to a problem. If every time you say, like, here's my idea, and somebody shoots you down and says that's a stupid idea, are you going to keep continuing to suggest things? Probably not. You're going to shut down and say, well, none of my suggestions get any sort of validation whatsoever, so I'm just going to not participate anymore. On the flip side, what if that person said something, it went on the board, and it wasn't until they got to the 11th or 12th idea that was like the idea that was going to solve every problem, increase productivity, make the company $1 billion or whatever it is. But they never would have gotten there had they not learned how to do this brainstorming effectively so that everybody feels valued and included. And so some of those rules of improv really help to define how that works and the best approach for it.
That's really great. That's really great. I understand that you traveled, but now you're in Colorado.
Yeah,
Better.
Yep, I like to travel. I like to see the world and see other cultures and see how people live and what they think, and it's great.
That's really cool. So how's Denver? You know, I'm going there. I'm going there this month.
Nice. October's so Denver's an interesting city in that we only have fall for the month of October. So we'll go from green leaves on trees to like no leaves on trees in 1 month. And then it just kind of gets cold after that. But it doesn't necessarily snow that much in Denver either. The snow usually happens in the mountains. Denver will get some snowstorms here or there, but because it's always sunny out here, the snow melts in like a day or two after it lands. So it's really great.
It's awesome. So
Yeah.
I just want to give some, to give some value to the audience. Like what are the basic steps of like not being upset? Because I know probably something someone's dealt with in the past.
Yeah. The best thing that I could say would be it's okay to be upset. You know, a lot of people will say, chill out, don't get upset, stop freaking out, whatever it might be. I'm going to go ahead and say it's okay to be upset. The caveat there is you can't stay upset. What you can do is you can recognize being upset for what it is as a point in time where you can choose something different. And so I talked about a workflow that I created as a result of being upset. And, it's free on my website. We can talk about that later. But at the top of it, it says you're upset. And that's where you kind of have a choice. And you can first start asking the question, did I know I had this expectation? Because if you're upset, there's an expectation not being met. And a lot of time, we don't even know that we had this expectation until that very moment. So if you can sit there and explore like, hey, I didn't even know I had this expectation, you're almost able to calm yourself down immediately because now you have to explore this expectation you just found out you had. You know, if you have an expectation to somebody else doing something, but you never even told them about that expectation, and what if you didn't even know you had that expectation? You couldn't have told them anyway. So now they're not meeting the expectation you didn't even know you had. There's no reason to be upset with them. But if you did know you had the expectation, then you really have to ask yourself, have I shared this expectation with somebody else? And did they buy into it? Because it's not just that you have an expectation that you share it. The other person may have a conflicting expectation, or they may have a slightly different variation of that expectation. So now you guys have to talk to one another and really kind of decide, where does this fit? Where's the middle ground? What can we negotiate and agree on at the end of the day? And if you have agreed on something and it's still going unmet, there's probably some other expectation in there that you have to explore now. Because expectations aren't just linear things that one happens after the other. Sometimes there's layers of expectations on them. And it's fun to explore. It's annoying at times, but as you catch on more and more to the expectations that you had, you'll start catching the expectations that you will soon have. And therefore, you're kind of stopping the point of getting upset before it even happens. But the good news is if you do this on a regular basis, you'll be upset instead of an hour, maybe 10 minutes, and then maybe 5 minutes, and then maybe a minute. Because you'll never stop getting upset at things because that's just human nature. But if you can shorten those time frames, you're going to be happier more often.
That's incredible. That's really incredible. I'm super interested in what are some of your goals and like what do you see yourself?
Well, right now, the biggest thing that's kind of taking up my time is writing the sci-fi novel. It's actually a lot of fun. I've had the idea because sci-fi is kind of my jam. That's what I like to read. And I kept thinking, well, maybe I could write a sci-fi novel, but I never really gave myself permission. And then somebody somewhere told me writing fiction is like doing improv. I was like, done, I can do that. It almost gave me that permission. And so as I'm writing this book, I'm also reading it at the same time. Like it's new to me as well. And sometimes I think I know where the story is going, and all of a sudden it just shoots off to a side, and I'm like, what just happened? And I'm the one writing it, right? So it's really a lot of fun to write a novel because you never know where it's going to go. And sometimes you have to reel yourself in and say, nah, we don't need to go over there. That's silly. But right now I'm just having a lot of fun with it. So that's my number one goal right now is to get that finished, hopefully by the end of the month with the first draft. So
Okay. And are you using like a writer or is this all you?
it's all me. So what I would tell other people that want to write a book is find a group of people that also want to write books, and then you can support each other. It's kind of like a support group. Say, hey, what did you do this week? What are you going to work on next week? And I have a group of 3 other people, and we've become good friends, and we like hanging out with each other, and we're very supportive of one another, and we shoot ideas off of each other, and hopefully they'll be the first 3 readers to read my book, and then they'll say, yeah, this is great, or hey, you should change this, or have you thought of that, or blah 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 blah. And so the support group is really, really important when you're starting a big project like writing your book.
And is that like on is there like a Facebook group or something like that for that?
I put on Facebook, I said, hey, anybody interested in a writer's group, I'm writing a sci-fi novel, and I would looking for people to support and to support me, and so on and so forth. And I found people through Facebook, and it was a small moment in time. Could have ended up with 5 or 6 people. I don't know that I would have wanted it any bigger than that, but yeah, there were 4 of us, and it's been working out great.
Wow, that's amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to mention about you or?
No, I think we got a lot of it. I did mention the flowchart. You can certainly get a copy of that for free at havingexpectations.com. Download it, put it on your fridge, on your office, wherever you work, and wherever you can see it more often, because then it reminds you that you have a choice.
Wow. Yeah, this has been super valuable. How do people get in contact with you?
Probably the easiest would be havingexpectations.com. There's plenty of ways to contact me through there. If it's for the improv training, it would be successimprov.com. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. I think a lot of what you said is super important right now. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I want to have you come and train my team on the team building stuff for real.
Absolutely.
And his book,
What to expect when having expectations.
Yeah, it's out now. Havingexpectations.com. All right. We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good.